Welcome to the latest installment of the Microsoft Security and Compliance webinar series for state and local governments. I'm your moderator today, Steve Thomas. I am a compliance technical specialist with the Microsoft Security State and Local Government sector. Today's topic will be searching and exporting Teams chat and channel messages, eDiscovery Standard versus eDiscovery Premium. And our presenters today are Leo Ramirez and Bibi, who are both compliance technical specialists here with Microsoft SLG. Before we begin, though, hey, Tony, guess what I did this past weekend? I toured the Kentucky Bourbon Trail with some old friends, but it didn't go completely perfect. My hotel tried to charge me $20 extra for air conditioning. Man, that wasn't cool. Get it? I mean, that joke was so cool, my blood type just turned to ice. Remember, folks, when you have to explain the dad joke, that means it's really, really good. All right, onward to the agenda as I will turn it over to Bibi and Leo.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Hi, everybody. Today we will be talking about Teams eDiscovery. First, we will look at the different solutions that Microsoft provides to perform Teams eDiscovery. We will also learn about the different locations where Teams content is stored. Then Leo will show you a demo of how to place Teams content on hold, then how to search and review and export the Teams data. State and local governments must respond to litigations and public records requests and sometimes to Freedom of Information Act requests. In earlier days, organizations used to primarily focus on email eDiscovery. Nowadays, most organizations have adopted the hybrid workplace and they have started to heavily leverage Teams and SharePoint, OneDrive for Business for their collaboration. So discovering and producing Teams content is a priority for most of our customers. You can use eDiscovery solutions in Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal to search for content in Exchange Online, OneDrive for Business, SharePoint Online, then Teams, as well as Microsoft 365 groups. We also provide several data connectors with which you can extend your eDiscovery to non-Microsoft 365 content as well. The Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal provides 3 discovery solutions. One is called the Content Search. Then we have eDiscovery Standard. And then we have eDiscovery Premium. You can use the Content Search tool to quickly search for content across Microsoft 365 data sources and then export the search results to a local computer. So this is primarily a search and export kind of a tool. Then eDiscovery Standard helps you create eDiscovery cases. You can associate the searches and exports with the case, and you can place an eDiscovery hold on the content locations that are relevant to the case. eDiscovery Premium provides an end-to-end workflow to support your internal and external investigations, and it provides several advanced capabilities like custodian management, then legal hold notification workflow, and advanced indexing of content. It also allows you to collect content into review sets where you can filter the content, you can search the content, tag it, and apply advanced analytics to cull non-relevant or duplicate content. If you're interested to get an overview of our eDiscovery Premium capabilities, we have covered that earlier in one of our previous webinar sessions. If you want to check the video recording of that session, I will be posting the link in the chat window, so you can refer it at a later time. So today we will be showing you how you can perform Teams eDiscovery using both eDiscovery Standard and eDiscovery Premium. So here are the different Teams content that you can collect and process using eDiscovery. We can process Teams chats between 2 or more people and also the attachments that are shared between them. You can also process the team's posts, the replies, and attachments that are shared in standard, private, or shared channels. Government customers can also now discover Teams reaction to various chat messages, posts, as well as Teams attachments. It is very important
Nice
for
and dark.
e-discovery managers to understand the type of Teams content that can be collected, processed, and reviewed. So this boils down to the favorite question of our customers. Where is the Teams content stored? Well, Teams data is stored in Azure Cosmos DB, but Teams compliance records are captured in Exchange Online, which are not visible to your end users, but they are available for e-discovery. This table here lists the Teams content type and where the content is stored for compliance purposes. So in Teams, the one-on-one chats, the group chats, and channel posts are stored in Exchange Online. And any files that are shared in Teams are stored in OneDrive for Business or the Teams SharePoint site or the SharePoint site that is associated with the channel. There are also some additional content in Teams like voicemails, then calendar meetings and recordings, etc. Teams voicemails and calendar meetings and Teams reactions will be in the user's mailbox, and Teams meeting recordings are stored in the user's OneDrive for Business. Let's now visually map where the content of Teams is stored. So here you can see there is a one-on-one private chat going on between Megan and Joni. Megan has also shared a file in this chat with Joni Sherman. Now all these chat messages are stored in both Joni and Megan's Exchange mailbox. Even if Joni didn't actively respond, this conversation will still be in both Joni and Megan's mailbox. The file that is shared by Megan will be found in Megan's OneDrive for Business. Here there is a team called District 9 Road Safety Audit. When this team is created, it creates an underlying Teams group mailbox and a Teams SharePoint site. After you create a team, you can add various channels to it so that your people can start having conversations. You can add standard channels that can be open to all the team members. You can add private channels for selected team members, and you can add shared channels for selected people both inside and outside the team. This general channel that I have highlighted here is a standard channel. The posts that are in standard channels are stored in the Teams group mailbox, and files that are shared in standard channel posts are stored in the Teams SharePoint site. This that I've highlighted here, it's a private channel. You can note the lock icon that shows you that it's a private channel. The posts in private channels are stored within the mailbox of all the members of the private channel, and the files that are shared in private channel posts are stored within the private channel's dedicated SharePoint site. Please note that the private channels will have their own SharePoint site to store the files. So this District 9 shared here is a shared channel. Posts that are in your shared channels are available within the Teams group mailbox, and files that are shared here are stored in the shared channel's dedicated SharePoint site. Again, shared channels will have their own SharePoint site. Now, the biggest challenge most customers face is how to find these locations so that they can include them during eDiscovery. Premium eDiscovery will simplify this process and make it very easy for you to include these locations, and we will see that in today's demo as well. So now that we know where the content of Teams resides, we can discover the Teams content using both standard and premium eDiscovery. This is the eDiscovery standard workflow for Teams content. The first step here is to create a standard eDiscovery case. Then next, eDiscovery managers must add the different Teams location that they want to search. To add the mailbox and SharePoint sites that are associated with the Teams, the eDiscovery managers may have to use PowerShell or they may have to contact the IT team for this information. And this is a common challenge that our customers face during standard eDiscovery, but it can be overcome using eDiscovery Premium. Then the next step here is to define search criteria for teams, like maybe keywords or date range, etc. And then you can review the sample of the search results, then finally export the team's messages. Since standard eDiscovery doesn't provide any advanced analytics to cull irrelevant data, you may end up exporting a lot of content and you may have to manually review it further. Now let's look at the workflow for discovering Microsoft Teams content using eDiscovery Premium. The first step here is to create an eDiscovery case using the new case format. Then the next step here is to identify the users who are data custodians in your investigation. When you add custodians to the case, it automatically shows you the mailboxes, the OneDrive for Business sites, and all the team's locations that are associated with that custodian. You can easily select those locations and search the team's data and also place the team's content on legal hold. Then next, you can search for team's content using keywords and conditions and collect the search results into a review set. Next, you can review the team's content inside the review set and cull any irrelevant data. In review sets, you can view team's messages as conversation threads. You can group the team's conversations. You can check the metadata properties of the team's content, and you can also manage deduplication. And after you have reviewed and culled the team's content in the review set, you can finally export the relevant team's messages as HTML transcript files. So thus, Microsoft Premium eDiscovery helps you to easily identify and process team's data and also produce the content that is relevant to your investigation. Now let's take a look at the demo for the standard eDiscovery as well as eDiscovery Premium and how we can search as well as put a hold on the team's content and export the team's content. So Leo will be showing you a demo. I'm handing the session over to you, Leo.
Thank you, Bibi. And can everybody hear me and see my screen? All right.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you so much. All right. So the demo you're about to see, this is a real use case that we actually got from a customer. The customer, they're using eDiscovery Standard, and their challenge was searching for Teams chat between two different users, all the communications that they had over the last year. They also wanted to be able to determine if these two users were communicating in a one-to-one chat or if they were posting messages in a Teams channel. Now, let's walk through the scenario first in eDiscovery Standard, and then we're going to show you the same scenario using eDiscovery Premium and how these features streamline the process and enhances the experience. But let's first go over to a user's workstation. This is a user named Alex. And Alex is having a conversation, a one-to-one conversation with his coworker, Alan. Let's take a note of a few things that are going on in this conversation. I'm going to scroll up. This is Alan communicating with Alex. Alex is responding. Notice here that there's Alan shared. He shared a file, but this is actually what we call a modern attachment. He shared a link to an attachment to a file that's actually located in his OneDrive. Now I want you to remember this because it's going to come up later. Scrolling down, we also see that Alan shared an image file. Sometimes image files can contain words that match search criteria in an investigation or a records request. I also want to note that Alex and Alan, they're sending messages in a Teams chat, a Teams site, channel messages. This is a team called Financial Leadership, and then Alan and Alex are communicating back and forth as well here. All right, now that we've set the stage, let's go over to the eDiscovery standard solution, which is located in the Purview Compliance portal. Now, for the convenience of this demo, I've already created a case that has all of the team chats for Alan and Alex. But let's walk through creating a new search so you can see all the details that are actually involved. I'm going to just click in this case here, and I'm going to create a new search. Click on new search and give it a name. I'm just going to give it today's date, 9/29/22. Search. Alex and Alan. Now here I have to choose a location. And as BB mentioned earlier, Teams chat messages, those one-to-one chat messages, they're located in the user's Exchange mailboxes. So that's why you see Teams here. So I'm going to select Alex, find Alex. Come on, Alex, wake up. Alex W. Right. Also going to find Alan. Alan. And another thing that BB mentioned is that the teams cite the group mailboxes. Any communications that Alex and Alan had in that financial leadership teams channel, those have to also be added here as well. So I can just search for financial and locate that mailbox as well. So to make sure I'm capturing all of those messages within this search. Now, for the sake of brevity, I'm going to move on. And if I want to capture those files that are being shared across those one-to-one chats, I also have to add Alan and Alex's OneDrive account. One thing I want to note here in the eDiscovery standard solution is that it doesn't automatically provide you with a link to Alan and Alex's OneDrive URL. This is somewhat of a manual process, but there's also a script that you can use that's going to come back with those URLs. And this is a document that BB will put in the chat that describes the process of how that works. I'm going to go back to the search, and I'm just going to click next. All right, here we're going to define the search criteria. All right, and remember in this use case, the customer, they wanted to go back 1 year. So I'm going to define the search criteria as 1 year. I'm just going to change, change that 2022 to 2021. Also, the message kind I'm looking for is IM. So I'm going to put in that search condition. And because I'm interested in communications between Alan and Alex, I'm going to define the senders as Alex and also Alan. I'm also going to define the recipients as Alex and Alan. This is going to ensure that I'm getting that back and forth communication. Now, this is what that search condition would look like. All right, this is a small example. I'm not going to click next because I've already created this search. We're just going to go to the search that I created previously for Teams chat between Alex and Alan. And we're going to take a look at some of the samples. You know, after you create a search and it's complete, you're going to get an option to look at a sample of the search results. And I want you to notice something here. Once this comes up, the messages that were returned, they're actually going to be individual messages. while this is coming up, you can also export those items because the sample is only going to come back with a few, a number of items as a sample. It's not going to give you all the results, but you can also export the results. And if you notice, they come back as individual messages. So if I click on one of these messages, this is Alan sending a chat to Alex. Doesn't tell me, I don't see the threaded communication. And this is what my customer's challenge was. They wanted to know, hey, how do I know, they're communicating in a back and forth chat? Well, they actually had to use the timestamp to line things up. So that was, again, a challenge. And also another thing, there's no metadata here. When these search results come back, there's no metadata to further refine this search. All right, now this is a simple example of just two users going back and forth, and two known users at that, which is totally possible to do in eDiscovery standard. But imagine those scenarios when there's more than two users, when there's 10, when there's 20, or when there's 100. And you can probably imagine how long that's going to take. And time is money, especially when you're trying to complete a FOIA request or a public records request on time. Now, let's hop over to the eDiscovery Premium solution to see how this process is streamlined. All right. Click on eDiscovery Premium. And again, I've already have a case with a collection that I've previously created. I go into this case, and we're gonna go to the Data Sources tab. Now, in eDiscovery Premium, data sources can either be custodians or non-custodians. So a custodian is essentially an owner of a mailbox, a OneDrive. They own their files. Non-custodians is a SharePoint site. Another example is maybe a shared mailbox, right? I've already added Alan and Alex as custodians in this case. But let's go through the process of adding a new custodian. So you can see some of these features, these enhanced features. I'm going to choose a username Isaiah. Right, and let's expand Isaiah here. eDiscovery Premium automatically maps Isaiah's mailbox and his OneDrive. I don't need to know Isaiah's OneDrive URL. The solution already automatically maps it for me. Another nice feature is if we go down to the teams right here, it automatically identifies which team sites that Isaiah is associated with. So I can see the team site that BB mentioned earlier and the group mailbox that's associated with the team site. And I can choose the ones that are interesting for this investigation or this request. So I'm just going to choose these two. This in itself saves a lot of work, but we're not done yet. So now that I've identified my custodians and I've mapped the relevant data sources, now it's time to collect data. And this is equivalent to the search we saw in eDiscovery Standard. Now I've already created a collection, but again, I want to walk you through the process of how it's done in eDiscovery Premium. I'm just going to give it a name, 9/29/2022, Alan and Alex teams. Yes. Right. Here I have the option to select the custodians of interest. I'm going to select Alan and Alex. I've already identified these users in the previous step. And if you notice, because I selected to have their OneDrive account, it's automatically mapped for me here too. Click next. And again, I mentioned non-custodial sources. Those are things like shared mailboxes, SharePoint sites, group mailboxes, things that aren't necessarily owned by a particular user. We have the option to choose additional locations. And this is going to look familiar to you. This is the same thing we saw in eDiscovery Standard. We define our search criteria. I'm going to go by date. Again, I'm going to go back to 2021 because I want 1 year. I want to do a search on any communications over 1 year. I'm going to define the message kind as instant message. And I'm also going to do the senders and recipients as Alan and Alex. Sender. All right. So this is what it would look like in eDiscovery Premium as well when you're doing a collection. Again, since I've already done this for us, for brevity, I'm going to cancel here and go into a collection that I created before. Actually, I missed a step. I wanted to show you some other steps in this collection. Sorry about that. I'm just going to select all. There's a step you need to see right here. So here we have some choices before you submit this collection. You can get an estimate of what you're searching for. This is going to, validate the size and the scope before you commit it to a review set. Or you can send this collection automatically to a review set. And a review set is essentially a stale data source. It's not an active, it's not the active live data. You're sending it to essentially an Azure storage blob where reviewers, they can act upon the content that has been collected. They can annotate, they can tag, and things of that nature. Another nice feature of eDiscovery Premium is that it puts Teams messages in context in a conversation, and it threads those communications automatically. This is on by default right here. And it also collects cloud attachments, which is very convenient. So those can also be searched and acted upon in the review process. Now that I've shown you this part, let's jump over to the review set. So now that this collection has been copied to the review set, I can go into, by the way, just like you can have multiple collections, multiple searches, in eDiscovery Premium, you can also have multiple collection or multiple review sets. I'm going to go into this review set here. As you see, I've already created a filter for instant messages, Teams instant messages. I'm going to click on this top message, and you're going to see something very familiar. Notice, this is the conversation that we saw at the beginning of the demo from Alex's workstation. This is Alex and Alan going back and forth. It's a threaded communication, so I don't have to line up timestamps. Everything's here right in front of me, and I can act upon it easily. Here's that link that was shared from OneDrive. That's also a part of this conversation. I can go over here as a reviewer if I'm, someone on the legal team or eDiscovery team. I can go in here and I can do area redaction. So if there's anything in here that's sensitive, or when this content is exported, it shouldn't be viewable, I can either do an area redaction or I could do a pencil redaction. Okay. Another nice feature with eDiscovery Premium is I can download this item. So if I wanted to download this conversation in its original format, I have that option right here. I can just click download, and this comes over as an HTML file. This was another part of the use case that the customer provided to us. They wanted to be able to download the item on demand and see the threaded communication, the conversation. It can also be downloaded as a PDF. So I can click on that, and here the download comes down as a PDF, which is pretty convenient as well. Another nice feature about eDiscovery Premium is this redaction. When you export this item using the export tool, these redactions are going to be burned into the PDF, and it's once exported. If I go over here and I expand this conversation that's been going back and forth between Alex and Alan since looks like April 26th, I can also see any documents they have been sharing over the course of their conversation history, which is pretty neat and convenient. Also putting all that communication together along with any attachments. Now, one of the other questions in this use case was, how do I know if this is a one-to-one conversation or if this is happening in a Teams channel? Well, it's all in the metadata. And that's another feature that's provided in eDiscovery Premium. So if I click on the metadata tab of the item or the conversation, I can scroll down and look for a field related to Teams name or Teams channel name. You notice here, team name is blank, the team channel name is null. This tells me that it's a one-to-one conversation. It's not a conversation that's happening in a channel. But if I click over here, this is if you recall, when Alex and Alan were going back and forth in the financial leadership Teams channel, right here, I'm on the user's workstation again. Going back to the review set, here's the metadata tab on that communication, or excuse me, on that conversation. If I go down on the scroll down and I look for the team's name, look here, it's financial leadership. That's the team name, that's the channel name. So that's how you would find out whether the conversation's happening in a one-to-one or in a channel. Now, these are just some of the features that eDiscovery Premium offers. Plenty of more, and this is, again, a short demo of just two users going back and forth in a conversation. Now, we saw that eDiscovery Standard can also produce results, but eDiscovery Premium streamlines this process and gives the reviewer a lot more options. Now, when we're working with customers, we see that they're limited on resources and time is critical. eDiscovery Premium can actually save you time, and it takes away the mystery of where you need to search for content when it comes to Teams. And this is content that's likely relevant to a FOIA request or a public records request, and of course, an investigation. Now, with that note, I'll now hand it back over to Steve, who's going to go over a few more resources that are available to you.
Thanks, Leo. Let me share my screen here. So if you want to get started with Microsoft Purview, we have a lot of resources at the ready for you. First of all, we have some Microsoft funded partner-led workshops on protecting and governing sensitive data, on mitigating compliance and privacy risk. If you have unified support, I also want to make you aware of the Workshop Plus and Activate sessions that we have available. We have Workshop Plus Microsoft 365 Security and Compliance sessions available for Compliance Center, data loss prevention, managing insider risk, records management, Microsoft Priva, and content search and eDiscovery case management. Also, our unified support offers a compliance optimization assessment as well. And as always, we have dedicated fast track SMEs, lots of them actually, that can provide guidance on implementing best practices as you adopt Microsoft Purview solutions and assist with deployment. So if you need to schedule a meeting with an SLG compliance specialist for compliance solution live demonstrations, such as BB, Leo, or myself, don't hesitate to email msslgcompliance@microsoft.com. And we'll go to the next slide. Just want to recap what we discussed today. This has been session 2 of our 2022-2023 series on Microsoft Purview and the Purview products. Today's session was searching and exporting chat messages in eDiscovery and EDP. And if you have any questions regarding Microsoft Purview or would like assistance, please don't hesitate to contact us at msslgcompliance@microsoft.com. That's msslgcompliance@microsoft.com. And as always, if you are more of a self-study type individual, we have lots of those resources available as well. We have lots of technical documentation, and we'll provide those links as well in the chat. Microsoft Purview Information Protection landing page is a great place to start. A little bit more related to today's topic, we have some documentation on configuring teams with 3 tiers of protection. We also have some excellent, what we call ninja training out there on information protection. That's helpful for not only learning how to deploy, but also helping if you're doing something like getting certification. And of course, all of these sessions, all of these previous sessions from this season and last season are all available on the Microsoft SLG Compliance Recordings channel on YouTube as well. And we'll go to the next slide. Want to kind of touch base on what we've got coming up as well. We have coming up next, we have myself and Bhavana Bhatia, BB as we call her, on Microsoft Purview Audit Premium capability. So if you need to find a user that's viewed a certain document or purged an item from their mailbox, we'll talk about how you can quickly find those activities across your Microsoft 365 organization to help support and simplify investigations, reporting, as Leo said, FOIA request. And then following that, at the end of this month, taking control of mobile communication and text messaging data using Microsoft Purview data connectors. We get that question all the time. How can I import non-Microsoft data like from WhatsApp or Signal or Verizon SMS, AT&T SMS? How can we import this into Microsoft 365 to archive and ensure that it is compliant and up to business and regulatory standards? That's going to be a great session. We're going to have not only Leo Ramirez back, but we'll also have Gil Shapira, who is our a vice president of business development over at Telemessage. And then following that, we will dive into a little bit of Microsoft Intra Permissions Management, talking about managing permissions in a multi-cloud environment. Our permissions management product, that's a cloud infrastructure entitlement management, what we call a CIEM solution, not to be confused with SIEM, that provides comprehensive visibility and control over all permissions, not just for Microsoft, but any identity and any resource across major clouds. It's multi-cloud, Microsoft Azure, AWS, GCP. And we're going to have a global black belt, Scott Walton from the EPM team here for that session. So lots of great topics coming up, and we hope to see you all there as well.